What is the difference between good anger and bad anger? Is it possible to be angry and not sin? It's a question that I think a lot of people intuitively struggle with. They know that anger leads to all sorts of crazy things. They feel controlled by it. Your heart beats faster, your face gets rosy red, you say things that you don't mean, and afterwards you regret it. And it seems to be the case that anger essentially is something that can't ever be turned towards good. Don't be angry, don't be angry. And generally speaking, there's a truth to that. But it's not the full truth. It seems to me that it is possible to be angry and not sin. It is possible to have a good anger. But to understand what this means, we need to look a little deeper onto what it means to be human. And Gregory the Great will help us with this. And not only what it means to be human, but what it means to have a body that can be controlled by anger and that we can resist and bring under subjection. So let me explain what I mean. Gregory says in his third book of the Moralia in section 70, many people are subject to anger. So by subject to anger, he's saying you submit yourself to anger. So anger comes and it just takes over you. And you're like, man, I can't control myself. I feel so shaped by, controlled by, and moved by anger that I feel like I can't even resist it. It's just, you get me so angry. And there's nothing there that can really free you from this feeling. Well, when that happens, you actually are subjugated to anger. The anger is controlling you. The fast heartbeat, the excitement, the energy, the endorphins, whatever you have going on, your body is reacting so strongly that you just sort of cave to the pressures. Now, it doesn't have to be anger. This happens all the time. It can be lust. It could be 1,000 different things. But anger is the one that we're looking at right now. But Gregory continues, when people who, suffer anger, when they subject their anger to the control of reason, they put it at the service of holy zeal. Many are lifted up by pride, but as long as they subject their souls to the fear of God, they transform their pride into the voice of free authority for the defense of justice. In this case, he's even saying there's a sense in which pride can be transformed through the fear of God. Likely, this is why all of us intuitively know you can say to your son or daughter, I'm really proud of you. And when you say that, you're not, there's some, whatever you're doing isn't the same thing as like, I'm full of pride and self-referentialness. It's outward, you're loving others. Secondly, it can be connected to the fear of God, so you're not just like saying, this is the end of all things, namely that I'm proud. He goes on, the power of the flesh entices some, but if they subject their bodies to the doing of good works in place of the evil temptations they had previously suffered, the reward is abundant piety. It goes on a little bit later, by subjugating our thoughts of vice, we turn them into virtues. By making the perversity in our temptations an offering in our intentions, we change them into friendly dispositions. This is going to change your life if you realize this. Whenever you experience a feeling of anger, of temptation, of pride, whatever it is, it might come up from your body. It might be, as the Apostle Peter says, you have like passions of the flesh, or Paul says this in Romans 7, whatever. James 2. Okay, that's going to be there. But if you take whatever the anger is, whatever the temptation is, and you don't let it shape and control you, but bring your reason, bring your thinking, and control it, you can redirect it into something good. Anger is a great example of this. Occasionally, anger is necessary to show zeal or a pursuit of justice. If you have a child or a friend, and they get struck in the head by a robber, actually in this case, because you have seen injustice, that feeling of anger that arises in you is good. Now, you have to allow that to be guided by reason. So if you just pulled out a gun and shot the person who was running away, that might be viewed as murder or over the top. But if you say, I'm going to do whatever necessary to protect my friend or family member, and you jump in the way and defend the person, etc., that anger has been transformed into zeal, holy justice, a pursuit of goodness and rightness. And actually, it's in partnership with your body. You may have, um, uh, when you get angry sometimes and energetic, your body can access deeper wells of strength. You have the ability to have bursts of energy. You have this fight and flight mode, or the fight and flight mode that develops in your body, all the different chemical reactions that other people would know. And if you partner with your mind, that invisible part of you that knows this is just to do, then rather than being controlled by that anger and being enslaved to it, or rather than denying your body and just trying to be some brain floating around in the hemisphere, you actually unite with your body in a partnership. You are fully who you ought to be, because we're not just brains and bodies, souls in a flesh bag. We are the irreducible union of body and soul. We are an embodied, full human being. We are ourselves, body and soul. And the problem is, we live in a world where there's a disorder. We don't always do what we wish. Sometimes we do what we don't want to do. Sometimes anger makes us say things we don't. Sometimes lust means that we pursue avenues we should not pursue. Sometimes pride makes us say things that are self-evidently wrong and we regret it later. Well, we all know that. And a lot of the sometimes you can just be hungry, by the way, and you get angry because you're hungry, or you lack sleep, so you're frustrated. We know that there's some discordant thing. There is this problem, a disorder between the right ordering of our body and soul, of our whole self. We probably shouldn't even talk about body and soul, as unless you're just trying to explain details. You're just you. And so we have to understand that there is this disorder. Christians call it sin or corruption. Augustine of Hippo, for example, called it a disordered love. Some people recently have been talking about the Ordo Amoris, the order of love. Basically, the order of love is how Christians have talked about change, how they talked about how you order your priorities and the things that you ought to do. In a sense, this is connected to this conversation. If you get angry and you feel overwhelmed, a right ordering is to say, okay, let's use this anger, because you're probably responding to some real thing that is bad, and let's match it with what I know is right and just and wise, and use that anger in a controlled way to pursue justice, goodness, etc. And what you'll often find, probably 90% of the time, 95% of the time, is that your anger is actually unnecessary. It's merely a passion, and it might actually need to be controlled. But 5% of the time, the anger is actually valid and right, and needs to be shaped by your mind, shaped by your ability to know what is right and just. Now, this is the lesson that Gregory teaches us. And while it maybe sounds a bit old-fashioned, I think all of us know exactly what it means to experience this lack of control through our emotions and passions and desires shaping us, rather than seeing them as partners in the whole you. And Gregory wants us to understand that we have passions of the body, of the flesh, desires, things that come from our body, and we need to respect them, either by course correcting them when they're disordered, or by reordering them towards a good end. I mean, ultimately, you're reordering them no matter what. And I think if we learn that lesson through practice and habit, we will move from one level of control and justice and prudence to another one day by day, and become the kind of humans that we wish we could be, but often feel like we can't be. You now have the secret to growth. Whether or not you, by habit, take it, that's up to you. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe. If there's a bell, click it. I don't even know. Comment, whatever is appropriate on the medium that you're watching. Thank you so much.